From the moment we were children, my sister Amelia was my protector. When our father drank too much, she held my hand. When our mother forgot us, she remembered. For 40 years, she was the only constant in my chaotic world. So when my husband died suddenly, leaving me shattered and alone, she was the one I turned to. I trusted her with my grief, my finances, my future. I trusted her with my life, and she used every bit of that trust to take everything I had. This isn't a story about betrayal. It's a story about what happens when the person who is supposed to love you most becomes the one who destroys you. Hello. Welcome to Hurt Stories. Let me tell you about my sister, Amelia. She is 3 years older than me, which meant nothing when we were children and everything when we were adults. 3 years was the difference between being protected and being vulnerable. 3 years was the difference between having someone who remembered and being the one who forgot. We grew up in a house that was not safe. Our father drank, not the fun kind of drinking, the kind that leads to dancing and laughter, the other kind, the kind that leads to broken dishes and broken promises and the sound of a belt being pulled from loops. Our mother, I don't know what our mother's problem was. She was there, but she wasn't there. She moved through the house like a ghost, like she'd already left us even while her body remained. But I had Amelia. When the shouting started, she would grab my hand and pull me to our room. She would lock the door and push the dresser against it, even though she was small and the dresser was heavy. She would put her hands over my ears and hum songs until it was over. When our mother forgot to buy food, Amelia would make me toast and pretend she wasn't hungry. When I had nightmares, she would let me crawl into her bed and hold me until I fell asleep. When the other kids at school teased me for my clothes, for my hair, for being the girl from that house, Amelia would find them at recess and give them a reason to stop. She was my hero, my protector, my entire world. I loved her with the fierce, absolute love that only a child can feel. She wasn't just my sister. She was my mother, my father, my friend, my shield. She was everything. And she knew it. She knew I would do anything for her. She knew I trusted her completely, absolutely, without question. She built that trust, brick by brick, year after year. She made herself indispensable to my survival. I didn't know then that she was also building a prison. I didn't know that the person who protects you can also be the person who controls you. I didn't know that love and ownership can look the same when you're too young to see the difference. We survived that house. We grew up. We got out. Amelia went to college, then law school. She became a lawyer, sharp and successful. I went to community college, then worked my way up in a small accounting firm. I wasn't as ambitious as her, but I was steady, reliable. I built a quiet life. I married a man named Daniel. He was kind and gentle, the opposite of our father. He loved me quietly, steadily, without drama or danger. We had a daughter, Sophie, who became the center of my world. For the first time in my life, I felt safe. I felt whole. And Amelia was there for all of it. She was the aunt who spoiled Sophie rotten. She was the sister who came for holidays and called on Sundays. She was the one I called when I had good news and the one I called when I had bad news. She was still my protector, even though I didn't need protecting anymore. Or so I thought. I had no idea that the person I trusted most was quietly, carefully, waiting for the moment when I would need her most. Because that's when she could finally take everything. Daniel died on a Thursday. It was a heart attack, sudden, massive. He was 52 years old, healthy as far as we knew, and then he was just gone. I got the call at work. I remember dropping the phone. I remember someone driving me home. I remember walking into a house that suddenly felt like a stranger's. The next weeks were a blur. Funeral arrangements, phone calls, flowers, casseroles. Sophie came home from college and we held each other and cried. I didn't know how to be a widow. I didn't know how to be alone. I had spent my whole life building my identity around other people, first Amelia, then Daniel. Now one was gone and the other was Amelia. She arrived the day after the funeral. She swept into my house with her designer coat and her lawyer's efficiency and took over. She made calls. She dealt with the insurance company. She talked to the bank. She told me to rest, to grieve, to let her handle everything. And I did. I let her, because she was Amelia, because she had always protected me, because I trusted her with my life. The weeks turned into months. I moved through my days in a fog. Sophie went back to school. The house got quiet. I stopped going to work, took a leave of absence, then another, then finally just stopped. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't function. I couldn't be the person I used to be. Amelia was there through all of it. She visited every weekend. She called every night. She handled my mail, my bills, my appointments. She told me not to worry, that she had everything under control. She told me to focus on healing, on grieving, on getting through each day. I was so grateful, so relieved. I had lost Daniel, but I still had my sister. I still had Amelia. She would take care of me. She always had. I didn't notice at first when she started asking me to sign things. Just little things, she said. Insurance forms, bank authorizations, power of attorney just temporarily, just until I was feeling better. I signed without reading. I signed because she asked me to. I signed because I trusted her. I was signing away my life. It was Sophie who first noticed something wrong. She came home for spring break, about 8 months after Daniel died. She looked around the house with new eyes, the eyes of a young woman who had been away, who had grown up, who saw things differently now. She asked me about the finances. I told her Amelia was handling it. She asked to see the accounts. I told her I didn't have access anymore, that Amelia had set up new ones to make things easier. She asked to talk to Amelia. I told her she was being paranoid. But Sophie wouldn't let it go. She's always been stubborn, like her father. She started asking questions. She started digging. And what she found made her blood run cold. Our family home, the house Daniel and I had bought together, the house we'd raised Sophie in, the house that was supposed to be mine forever, had been sold. 6 months after Daniel died, sold to a company I'd never heard of. And the money was gone. Our savings accounts, the ones we'd built over 20 years of marriage, had been drained, transferred to accounts in Amelia's name. Our investments, our retirement funds, the college money Sophie hadn't used yet, all of it, gone. I didn't believe her. I couldn't believe her. I called Amelia. She didn't answer. I called again, and again, and again. Finally, she picked up. Her voice was cold. Not the warm, protective voice I knew. Something else. Something I'd never heard before. She said she'd done what she had to do. She said I was in no condition to manage my own affairs. She said the money was safer with her. She said I'd thank her someday. I asked about the house. She said it was for the best. Too many memories, she said. I needed a fresh start. She'd already found me a small apartment, much more manageable, much more affordable. Affordable, the word hit me like a slap. I had plenty of money, or I had before she took it. Now I had nothing. I hung up. I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, the best one I could find. I told her everything. She listened, took notes, and then she looked at me with something like pity. She said it would be hard. She said Amelia had power of attorney, signed by me. She said the transfers were legal on paper, even if they were morally wrong. She said I could fight, but it would take years and cost money I didn't have. I asked how much of my money was left. She said she'd look into it. She looked, there was nothing left. Amelia had taken everything, every penny, every asset, every safeguard I'd built over a lifetime. She had left me with nothing but a small apartment she'd already leased in my name, with the first 6 months paid for. 6 months, that was the timeline. 6 months to figure out how to survive. 6 months before I would be completely destitute. My sister, my protector, my entire world, had stolen my world. I spent the next weeks trying to understand. Not how, that was clear enough. But why? Why would she do this? Why would the person who protected me my whole life turn around and destroy me? I went back through our history looking for clues I'd missed, and I started to see them. Small things. Things I'd explained away at the time, but now stood out like warnings. The way she always knew what was best for me. The way she made decisions without asking. The way she'd get quiet when I talked about Daniel, about my marriage, about my happiness. The way she'd always positioned herself as the capable one, the smart one, the one who could handle things I couldn't. I thought she was protecting me. She was actually diminishing me. Every time she stepped in, she was telling me I couldn't manage on my own. Every time she took over, she was proving that I needed her. She had spent 40 years making herself essential to my survival. And when I finally didn't need her anymore, when I had Daniel, when I had Sophie, when I had a life that was whole without her, she couldn't stand it. So she waited. She waited for the moment when I would be weak, when I would need her again. And then she struck. I found out later that she'd been planning it for years. The power of attorney documents were drafted long before Daniel died. She'd had them ready, waiting for the right moment. She'd been tracking my finances, my investments, my vulnerabilities. She knew exactly how much I had and exactly how to take it. When Daniel died, she saw her chance. She moved fast. She isolated me from friends, from advisors, from anyone who might have warned me. She made herself indispensable, and then she took everything. The worst part? She didn't need the money. She was a successful lawyer. She had plenty of her own. This wasn't about greed. This was about power. This was about control. This was about proving once and for all that I couldn't survive without her. She wanted me broken. She wanted me dependent. She wanted me to need her so badly that I would never leave again. And for a while it worked. I moved into the apartment. It was small and cold and smelled like someone else's life. I sat on the floor in the empty living room. I couldn't afford furniture, and I wondered how I had gotten here. 50 years old, widowed, betrayed by the only family I had left, penniless, alone. Sophie wanted me to come live with her. She was in graduate school, sharing a tiny apartment with roommates. There was no room for me, but she would have made room. She would have done anything for me, but I couldn't do that to her. She was just starting her life. She didn't need to carry me. So I stayed. I sat on that floor day after day, and I thought about giving up. I thought about Daniel. I thought about how hard he'd worked to give us a good life, and how quickly it had all been taken away. I thought about Sophie, and how she'd never forgive me if I gave up. I thought about Amelia, and how she was probably waiting for me to call, to beg, to admit that I needed her. And that last thought, is what saved me. I realized that if I gave up, she won. If I disappeared, she won. If I crawled back to her, broken and desperate, she won. The only way to beat her was to survive. The only way to win was to thrive. So I got up. I got off that floor, I made a list, and I started. The first thing I did was get a job. Any job. I had been an accountant, a good one, but my certifications had lapsed, my contacts were old, and my confidence was shattered. I couldn't walk into a firm and ask for a position. I could barely walk into a grocery store without having a panic attack. So I started small. I got a job at a coffee shop, minimum wage, early mornings, the kind of job I hadn't done since I was a teenager. The manager was a young woman named Rosa who didn't care about my history. She just needed someone who showed up on time and didn't complain. I showed up every day. I made coffee. I wiped counters. I smiled at customers. I came home exhausted and fell into bed and got up and did it again. It was humbling. It was humiliating. It was also the best thing that could have happened to me. Because at that coffee shop, I met people, real people, people who didn't know my story, people who didn't pity me, people who just liked me for me. There was Rosa, who became a friend. There was Tom, a regular customer who was a contractor and offered me small bookkeeping jobs on the side. There was Maria, another barista, who was putting herself through night school and reminded me what determination looked like. Slowly, painfully, I started to rebuild. I took the bookkeeping jobs. I did them well. Tom recommended me to others. I started a tiny business from my tiny apartment, freelance accounting for small businesses that couldn't afford a real firm. It wasn't much, but it was mine. It was honest. It was a start. I started exercising, just walking at first, then jogging. It cleared my head. It made me feel strong. I started eating better. I started sleeping better. I started to feel like a person again. And I started planning. Not revenge, I'm not that person, but justice, accountability. I wanted my sister to face what she'd done. I wanted the world to know. I wanted to take back what was mine, even if I couldn't take back the money. I started documenting everything. Every transfer, every document, every lie. I found the old power of attorney forms and saw that some of the dates had been altered. I found emails where she'd lied to banks and financial institutions. I found evidence of fraud, of forgery, of crimes that could send her to prison. I took it all to a new lawyer. Not the first one, who had told me it was hopeless. A different one, a woman named Patricia who specialized in financial exploitation of the elderly and vulnerable. She looked at my evidence and her eyes went wide. She said we had a case, a strong one. She said we could go after Amelia for everything. She said we could put her in prison. I thought about it. For a long time, I thought about it. I imagined her in handcuffs. I imagined her in an orange jumpsuit. I imagined her losing her law license, her reputation, her freedom. I wanted it. God, how I wanted it. But I also thought about what it would cost. Years of legal battles. Years of reliving the trauma. Years of being defined by what she did to me instead of who I was becoming. I made a choice that surprised even me. I didn't sue her. I didn't call the police. Instead, I called her and asked her to meet me. She agreed, probably out of curiosity, probably expecting me to beg. We met at a park near my apartment, neutral ground, open space, nowhere to hide. She arrived looking polished, professional, untouchable. She smiled when she saw me, that old familiar smile that used to make me feel safe. Now it made my skin crawl. I didn't waste time with small talk. I pulled out a folder, a thick folder full of copies of everything I'd found. I handed it to her. She opened it. She read. Her face changed. The smile disappeared. The color drained. She looked up at me, and for the first time in her life, my sister looked afraid. I told her I knew everything. I told her I had proof of fraud, forgery, financial exploitation. I told her I could destroy her career, her reputation, her life. I told her I had chosen not to. She stared at me. She asked why. I told her the truth. I told her I wasn't doing it for her. I was doing it for me. I was done letting her define my life. I was done being the victim. I was done giving her power over me. I told her I wanted one thing, just one, my house back. Not the money I knew that was gone, spent, or hidden too well, but the house. The house Daniel and I built. The house where Sophie grew up. The house that was mine. She laughed, a hollow, bitter laugh. She said she couldn't give it back, she'd sold it. The money was gone. I told her I knew that, but the house had been sold to a shell company she controlled. I'd done my research. I knew she still owned it, even if the paperwork said otherwise. I knew she'd been renting it out, collecting the income, pretending it wasn't hers. Her face went pale again. She hadn't expected me to know that. I told her she had two choices. She could transfer the house back to me quietly, legally, no questions asked. Or I could go to the police, to the bar association, to every news outlet in the city, with my folder full of evidence. She had 1 week to decide. I stood up. I looked at my sister, the woman who had protected me, who had destroyed me, who had made me who I was. I felt nothing. No love, no hate, nothing. I walked away. I didn't look back. 1 week later, I got a call from a lawyer. Not Amelia's lawyer, someone else. He said he represented the owner of a property and that the owner wished to transfer it to me. No explanation, no conditions, just signatures and keys. I signed. I got the keys. The day I moved back into my house was the best day of my life, better than my wedding day, better than the day Sophie was born, because this was mine. I had earned it. I had fought for it. I had taken it back. The house was empty. The renters had left. It needed work. Years of neglect had taken a toll, but it was mine. The walls were mine. The floors were mine. The garden, overgrown but still there, was mine. I stood in the living room, the same living room where I'd sat on the floor after Daniel died, and I cried. Not tears of sadness. Tears of relief, tears of victory, tears of coming home. Sophie came to visit that weekend. She walked through the house, touching the walls, remembering. She stopped in the kitchen and looked at me with tears in her eyes. She asked how I did it. I told her the truth. I did it by getting up every day, by taking small steps, by refusing to give up, by choosing myself over revenge. She hugged me. She said she was proud of me. She said Dad would be proud of me. And in that moment, I knew I was going to be okay. It's been 3 years since I got my house back. 3 years of rebuilding, inside and out. The house is beautiful now. I fixed it up room by room. The garden is blooming. I sit on the porch in the evenings watching the sunset and I feel grateful. Not for what happened, never for that, but for what came after. My business grew. That little freelance accounting job turned into a real firm. I have an office now and employees and clients who trust me. I make a good living. Not the money I had before, but enough. More than enough. Sophie graduated. She's a teacher now, married to a wonderful man. They have a baby on the way, a girl. She's going to name her Natalie. I cried when she told me. And Amelia. I heard she lost her law license. Not because of me, I never filed charges, but because she couldn't stop. She did it to someone else. An elderly client, a widow just like me. Only that widow had children who paid attention, who asked questions, who fought back. She's serving 5 years in prison. White-collar crime, they called it. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. I haven't visited. I haven't written. I haven't spoken to her since that day in the park. I don't know if I ever will. Sometimes I think about the little girl who held my hand, the girl who protected me from our father, the girl who hummed songs while I cried. I wonder where she went. I wonder if she was ever real or if I imagined her. People ask me if I've forgiven her. I tell them the truth. I don't know what forgiveness means anymore. I know I don't hate her. Hate is too heavy and I've carried enough weight. I know I don't wish her harm. What's happening to her now is enough. I know I don't think about her much. She's not part of my life anymore. Is that forgiveness? I don't know. Maybe it's something better. It's freedom. She tried to destroy me. She thought she could take everything and leave me with nothing. But here's what she didn't understand. The things that matter most can't be taken. My strength, my resilience, my love for my daughter, my memories of Daniel. My ability to get up every single day and keep going. Those things were mine. They'd always been mine. She couldn't touch them. I trusted my sister with my life. She destroyed it, but she didn't destroy me. Because I am not my life. I am not my money. I am not my house or my job or my relationships. I am the person who survived. I am the person who got up off the floor. I am the person who rebuilt brick by brick from nothing. She thought she was taking everything. She was actually giving me the chance to find out what I was made of. And now I know. I'm made of steel. I'm made of fire. I'm made of the same stuff that grows through concrete and survives the winter. I trusted my sister with my life. She destroyed it, and I built a better one. Thanks for listening. If you want to hear more story like this, please like the video and subscribe the channel. Hit the bell icon to get notified.